This is the image that will come to define this presidency. It is late at night. Capitol Hill is dark. The Senate office buildings are mostly quiet. But behind closed doors, phones are lighting up. Staffers are texting one another. Senators are refreshing their screens, checking and rechecking what they are seeing because it does not compute. The President of the United States did not call a Democrat. He did not go after the press. He picked up the phone and screamed profanities at a Republican senator, a member of his own party, a woman who has supported him for years. And for the first time in American politics in a very, very long time, they did not back down. This is not a drill. This is not political theater. This is the revolt no one saw coming. As of Saturday, January 31st, 2026, the United States Senate has advanced a war powers resolution directly targeting the President of the United States. This is not a symbolic gesture. This is not a strongly worded letter. This is Republicans, members of the President's own party, invoking a formal legal mechanism designed to strip a sitting president of unilateral military authority. Make no mistake. What just happened in Washington is unprecedented. A sitting president's own party has pulled the emergency brake on his ability to take the country to war. Here is what triggered it. The president called Senator Susan Collins, a Republican and longtime ally, and unleashed a tirade of profanity and threats. This was not persuasion. It was not negotiation. It was intimidation, because she voted to limit his power. That phone call tells you everything you need to know about this moment. When a leader responds to constitutional limits with rage rather than dialogue, they reveal how they truly view power, not as something granted by the Constitution, not as something shared with a co-equal branch of government, but as something personal, something that belongs to them alone, something no one, not Congress, not the courts, not even their own party, has the right to constrain. That belief is exactly what triggered this revolt. Republican senators are now actively working to block the president's authority to commit American military forces without congressional approval. These are not political enemies. These are senators who defended him for years, senators who absorbed the chaos, excused the rhetoric, and fell in line when the votes mattered, until now. This is not a policy disagreement. This is an intervention, and to understand why it happened, we have to go deeper. The immediate trigger was not domestic policy. It was not trade. It was not immigration. It was the president repeatedly floating the idea of using military force to acquire Greenland. That sounds absurd. Many people assumed it was a joke. It was not. The President of the United States publicly stated that military options were on the table for acquiring territory that belongs to Denmark, a NATO ally the United States is treaty-bound to defend. For years, Republican senators tolerated the rhetoric. They issued concerned statements and then fell in line. That was the arrangement. But this crossed a line, because this was not bluster about tariffs or immigration. This was the President of the United States threatening military action against a NATO member state. That changed everything. Article 5 of the NATO Treaty establishes collective defense. An attack on one member is legally treated as an attack on all. Greenland is Danish territory. Military action against Greenland would not simply be an attack on Denmark. It would be an attack on NATO itself. The United States would be threatening war with its own allies. That reality landed like a thunderclap inside the Senate. And here's the crucial point. This crisis is not about whether the president would actually invade Greenland. The threat itself is the crisis. When an American president says military force is on the table against allied territory, it alters global calculations immediately. Allies plan for worst-case scenarios. Adversaries look for openings. Neutral countries begin reassessing their alignment. Sources close to Senate leadership describe the mood as strategic alarm, not partisan panic. These senators have seen classified briefings. They understand how quickly words escalate into irreversible consequences. Presidential statements cannot simply be walked back. That is why they moved. The scenario they are now forced to take seriously is one in which an American president places the United States in direct military conflict with Europe over territorial acquisition. In any previous era, such rhetoric would have ended a presidency overnight. This is the moment the War Powers Resolution was designed for. Passed in 1973 after Vietnam, the War Powers Act is Congress's emergency brake. It requires consultation before military action and allows Congress to force withdrawal through formal resolution. That is the mechanism Republicans just activated against their own president. This is almost unheard of. And it opens multiple fronts at once. Front 1, War Powers. If the resolution survives a veto, Congress reasserts authority over military action for the first time in decades. For a president whose second-term strategy depends on projecting total dominance, this is a direct strike at the core of his political identity. Front 2, Emergency Declarations. Parallel to the War Powers fight, the president declared a national emergency tied to Venezuelan oil assets. On the surface, it appears economic. In reality, emergencies concentrate power. They bypass congressional oversight and expand executive authority. The pattern is unmistakable. Whenever oversight tightens, a new emergency appears. Front 3, Oversight. Senators are asking procedural questions about delayed documents, missed deadlines, and Inspector General compliance. These are not speeches. They are the beginning of paper trails. Paper trails do not respond to intimidation. They end in subpoenas. Front 4, International Consequences. Allies are watching a president threaten NATO members, bypass Congress, and intimidate dissenting senators. Trust erodes slowly until one day it is gone. Adversaries are watching too, not with concern, but with interest. Domestically, the reactions are diverging. The president's base views this as betrayal, but anger does not change Senate math. Independent voters see something else: instability, rage, and a president lashing out at constitutional limits. Donors are alarmed, not by ideology, but by chaos. And the most significant shift is among former allies. Senators who defended this president for years are now drawing lines. The intimidation failed. That matters more than the vote itself. At the White House, the response has been fury. The president views resistance not as democracy functioning, but as treachery. His strategy relies on an image of inevitability. An image shattered when his own party votes against him in public, so he lashed out. But intimidation is what leaders use when persuasion fails. That failure created a crack in the foundation. And cracks like this do not close. They spread. Here is the danger for the president. The harder he pushes, the more the system pushes back. Every emergency declaration raises new questions. Every threat generates more scrutiny. Every act meant to project control accelerates its erosion. This is the doom loop. Ultimately, this is not about one man. It is about whether constitutional limits are stronger than the individuals who temporarily hold power. Every democracy faces this test. Historians may look back on this moment as the point when Congress chose to hold. What happens next is uncertain. There are three plausible paths: containment, resistance stalls, and the coalition holds; escalation, oversight deepens, documents surface, and congressional authority expands; fracture, the president doubles down, the party splits, and the collapse accelerates. The next 60 days will determine which path becomes reality. Democracy does not defend itself. It survives only when people choose to hold the line. Right now, some of them are. The only remaining question is whether enough will.